Thank you, Your Honor. Before you today on State versus Justin Ruth, we're here today for sentencing. The state of Ohio has had the opportunity to review the pre-sentence report and is prepared to go forward. And I would remind the court that we have an agreed 2-year prison sentence as part of the plea agreement.
So, Your Honor, we do have an agreed 2-year recommendation for prison for Mr. Ruth. Mr. Ruth prior has done treatment. He did treatment at Wellbrook Recovery. He indicated he was sober for a year. Once these charges came to, he did become stressed. He did relapse a couple of times, so that is the reason for testing positive for the methamphetamine. With regard to the controlled buys, Mr. Ruth indicated that he was buying the drugs and selling them to feed his own addiction. He indicated he would purchase extra drugs, sell the remainder, and keep some for himself just to keep his addiction going. Your Honor, he does have a good support system. He is married. He does have children. His one child is 7 years old and does have special needs. He does try to be there for him as much as he can. So we just ask the court for any leniency today. Thank you.
I would benefit more from treatment than prison. I don't think I should not have consequences, but
treatment for what?
For the addiction, sir.
Well, you told Miss Warren that the last time you used meth was in March of 25, and you tested positive in April of 16, so how is that possible?
When we were talking about active addiction, that was a year ago.
What does active addiction mean?
The active addiction is when I was using regularly. I did relapse recently due to some stress, but I was able to put it back down. And
you tested positive when you were referred for a PSR on April 22nd. When that was addressed with Miss Warren, you indicated you don't know how that could be possible because you hadn't used since March of 2025. Why did you tell her that? Did you use, or do you not know how you tested positive?
I had used, Your Honor.
Then why did you tell her you didn't? That you had no idea how the positive test would have happened because you weren't using it?
Because honestly, I thought I had quit.
What do you mean you
Well, I had quit long enough that I should have had a clean test.
So you lied to her. When you told her you hadn't used since March of 2025 and you tested positive on April 22nd of 26, and you told her you had no idea how that happened because you hadn't used for some 13 months, you lied to her. Right?
Yes.
I don't, you got some equivocation on that?
I wasn't actively using.
I don't know what that means. If you use, then you're active. Then
but I had used and thought I would have been clean.
Why are you trying to split hairs like this?
I was just being
See,
sir.
Now let's get to the next part of this thing. Written version, when you went over for your referral, you said you were asked to get drugs from an individual you knew, and you wanted enough for yourself. When you talked to her, when she interviewed you when you came back, you indicated that the drugs, a large amount of drugs found in your bedroom where you stayed at this house, were not yours. But you decided you did things illegal in the past. You had been on drugs, but the drugs weren't yours. So if the drugs weren't yours, it resulted in the felony 2 charge. Why did you plead guilty to this case?
Because I had drugs, and I was holding myself accountable for the drugs that I had in there.
These drugs weren't yours?
Those particular ones at that time?
In your bedroom weren't yours?
At that particular time, no.
Okay. Whose were they?
There were 3 other active users in the house.
Active mean using?
Yes, sir.
Stop with the active and inactive. What's an inactive user? There's no such thing.
Correct.
Okay. So you pled guilty to an F3, which there's a presumption for prison. You know that, right? Because we talked about that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But the drugs weren't yours.
Correct. At that time. But I had some.
At that time. That's what I'm talking about. The drugs found.
Mm-hmm.
They could only have been found at that time. Those weren't yours. So how am I supposed to sentence somebody for a crime that they say they committed that they actually didn't commit? How am I supposed to do that?
because I had committed that crime.
But you're not charged with, in the past, committing that crime. You're charged with, in this situation, committing that crime. Well, of course, the real answer is you're lying to me, okay? Because you lied to her. You're lying all over the place. Okay, so that's the real answer. Those drugs were yours, okay? You were living at the house at that time, right?
I wasn't staying at that
What?
time. I was not staying at the house at that time.
You were staying versus living. We're gonna parse this definition now too. Where were you staying?
Most of the time I was staying at my wife's house.
Okay, and didn't you say somewhere along the line that you were in treatment at that time, so you weren't staying, living, whatever at that house?
I was preparing to go to treatment, and then
Didn't you say you were in treatment?
Like a week later.
Didn't you say you were in treatment at the time, as opposed to preparing to go into treatment at the time?
I got into treatment maybe a week later.
Right.
Is when I finally got in.
But did you tell Miss Warren that you were in treatment at the time?
I told her that I completed treatment shortly after.
Okay. Whew. So you started this by saying you want me to put you on probation, right? Is that right?
At some kind of treatment, I think I would benefit from, yes.
Okay.
Further treatment.
Well, I thought you already had treatment.
I had some.
Okay. I mean, at best, this was kind of a half-assed treatment, wasn't it? Wasn't some of this on the computer?
I did a residential, and then was doing some online meetings and stuff. And
what do you do on an online meeting?
it's basically the same as in person. It's just over.
Well, it's nothing like in person. Okay.
The format is.
It's a format. Well, it's a complete waste of time. So the treatment you're talking about that you completed was Wellbrook Recovery?
Yes, sir.
You went in there on March 23rd, right?
That sounds about right. Yes.
That's what the records show. And the offense here was committed March 18th. So when you said you were in treatment and you weren't at the house and it wasn't yours, that's not true. Are these records we have, or are these Mr. Ruth saying this?
They're records from the actual facility, Your Honor.
Okay, so May 6th is completed. And then you reported, which means this is you talking, that you would attend alumni sessions. What's an alumni session?
Alumni sessions are people that have graduated, from that program, become alumni, and twice a week they would have AA meetings, NA meetings.
And so you went twice a week?
Yes, sir.
Until this happened?
I probably stopped going to them, 3-4 months maybe, before this event happened.
When did you get involved again with the meth after you had stopped using after Wellbrook Recovery?
When I got arrested for this and everything was going on, I got pretty stressed out.
When did you get arrested for this?
Your Honor, I believe it was beginning of March of 2026.
And so by your story that you're telling today, you had been not using drugs for a year. You get arrested and you start using drugs again. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And where did you get the drugs when you started using again?
I couldn't tell you the gentleman's name. I found him online.
How did you find them online?
It's...
What website did you go to say, where do I find a meth dealer in my area? Where?
It was an app called Grindr.
Grindr?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that some kind of sex app or something?
It is, but I found that it's also full of people who...
So where did you find these drugs then, on the Grindr app?
Someone that was advertising that he had drugs.
Who was advertising that?
The gentleman that I found online on that app.
I know who.
I couldn't tell you his name. I've never seen him before or after.
So where'd you meet him?
At the Headlands Beach.
And how did you know who it was?
He
How
said,
did you find this person?
he said I'd be in a red car, and I told him I was in a black car, and he came and gave me the drugs, and I gave him the money, and
Okay, so you only used once then?
twice.
Twice?
It was the same batch of drugs, but I used, yeah,
Okay, so you only bought drugs once.
correct,
Okay, what quantity did you buy?
a gram.
A gram. When you were using the year previous, for whatever period of time that was, how much were you using a day?
Probably 2 to 3 grams a day.
Okay, so you bought a gram from somebody that you met on some app that you connected with somewhere, bought a gram. How much was a gram?
$20, sir.
Okay, and so you used some of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did you use the rest of it?
I want to say it was April.
Justin Ruth appeared in court for sentencing after entering a plea agreement that originally included a jointly recommended 2-year prison sentence. At the start of the hearing, the prosecutor reminded the court that both parties had agreed to a 2-year prison term as part of the plea deal. Defense counsel acknowledged the agreement but asked the court to consider several mitigating factors. She explained that Ruth had previously completed treatment at Wellbrook Recovery and had reportedly maintained sobriety for about a year before relapsing due to stress after these criminal charges arose. According to the defense, Ruth's involvement in drug trafficking stemmed largely from his own addiction, claiming that he would buy drugs, keep some for personal use, and sell the remainder to support his habit. Counsel also emphasized that Ruth had a supportive family, including a wife and children, one of whom had special needs, and argued that he attempted to be involved in his family's life. Based on those factors, she requested leniency. Ruth then addressed the court personally, arguing that treatment would benefit him more than prison, and stating that while he deserved consequences, he believed addiction treatment was the more appropriate response. The judge immediately began questioning him about inconsistencies in his statements regarding drug use. The court noted that Ruth had told the presentence investigator he had not used methamphetamine since March 2025, yet he tested positive for methamphetamine in April 2026. When asked how that was possible, Ruth attempted to distinguish between what he called active addiction and a recent relapse. The judge pressed him repeatedly, pointing out that he had specifically told the investigator that he had no idea how the positive test occurred because he had not used drugs in over a year. Eventually, Ruth admitted that he had used methamphetamine and acknowledged that he had lied during the presentence investigation. However, he continued trying to explain that he was not actively addicted, which further irritated the judge. The court criticized him for attempting to split hairs and avoid direct answers. The judge then moved to another major issue involving the drugs discovered during the criminal investigation. Ruth had previously told authorities that a large quantity of drugs found in his bedroom did not belong to him, yet he had pleaded guilty to the offense associated with those drugs. When the judge asked why he would plead guilty if the drugs were not his, Ruth gave conflicting explanations, suggesting that while those particular drugs were not his, he had possessed drugs at other times and wanted to take responsibility for his past behavior. The judge found this explanation nonsensical and repeatedly challenged him, asking how the court could sentence someone for a crime if the person claimed not to have committed it. Ruth insisted the drugs found at that specific moment were not his and belonged to other people living in the house. The judge openly accused him of lying and stated that the only logical explanation was that the drugs actually were his. The judge observed that Ruth seemed to be constantly changing definitions and creating distinctions between active and inactive users, staying and living somewhere and other technicalities rather than simply telling the truth. As questioning continued, the judge explored Ruth's treatment history. Ruth stated that he completed treatment at Wellbrook Recovery and attended alumni meetings afterward, including Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous sessions. However, records showed that he entered treatment shortly after committing the offenses. The judge pointed out that Ruth's timeline did not support many of the explanations he was offering. The court questioned whether the treatment had been effective and expressed skepticism about online recovery meetings, even calling them a waste of time compared to in-person treatment. The judge further examined Ruth's claim that he remained sober for a year before relapsing. According to Ruth, He resumed using methamphetamine only after being arrested and becoming stressed by the criminal charges. When asked where he obtained the drugs, Ruth admitted that he found a dealer through the mobile app Grindr. The judge seemed surprised and asked detailed questions about how Ruth located a drug dealer through an app commonly associated with social networking and dating. Ruth explained that he connected with someone advertising drugs, arranged a meeting at Headlands Beach, and purchased a gram of methamphetamine for $20. He claimed he only used the drugs twice. According to his story, he believed he had used the entire amount and thrown it away, only to later discover that some remained in a discarded bag near a trash can and use it again weeks later. The judge openly stated that he did not believe this explanation. He found it highly unlikely that a methamphetamine addict would buy